Bring in Blois Olson, Fluence Media, one of our Fox 9 political contributors. Blois, just coming out of that, these are really emotional, some really emotional testimony. We've heard those stories here for a few months now, and just seeing it laid out like that is pretty impactful.
Good afternoon, Amy. Very impactful. I think as you were just reading through why this bill might be necessary, you start to think of, I've known of the Hmong involvement there for 25, 30 years. And so I think just for viewers to just acknowledge and be aware that when something like this happens, decades and decades can pass before, what is right is probably done. If you think about the refugees who were allowed to come here after the Vietnam War, the Hmong, and settle, and their contributions to our community, and then you think, well, they fought for us. We allowed them to come settle here, but we never acknowledged that. The term, that's a pretty big gaslight that comes to mind as you think about that.
Yeah, and so many of them, as you see, they're aging, and we're that population, really not many of them left, and so just a last attempt here at really trying to get those benefits. Let's talk a little bit about the legislature today. We have a holiday that's recognized today and tomorrow, and then also Monday they'll be back in session. But the legislative calendar is a bit modified today and tomorrow. So just kind of top line it for us. How is it affected?
Sure, it's the Muslim holiday of Eid, and just like Easter break, they have an Eid break. Several legislators are Muslim, and so this is just a religious holiday, religious accommodation for their holiday. The session will end today. They won't meet tomorrow, and then they'll reconvene next week, and then in a couple of weeks we'll have that Easter break, which is a full week. And in the past, legislators have gone to their districts, they've done meetings, things like that. But now the way the legislature works, I feel like it's almost a week that they deserve before they get a vacation or a break before the final push to finish session by May 18th.
And Blois, and I could be mistaken, did I read or see somewhere that are there deadlines that they're trying to get under here? And so it feels like today and tomorrow you look and the calendars are just boop, 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 boop.
Yeah, no, for sure. So first deadline is this week and next, and then there's second deadline and a third deadline. And the purpose of deadlines is so that you can start to weed out the number of bills that get passed. And I mean passed as in PAST, not passed as in approved, because you can't hear all the bills that are dropped. There's over 3,000 bills authored and put in across the legislature, which is an issue. So the first deadline means a bill has to be heard and pass out of a committee before the first deadline. And so if you have an important bill, you're going to want to make sure you got a hearing. One of the other terms that you hear a lot is we're going to lay that over. That means we're just going to put it here, but if we build out a bigger bill on veterans issues or agriculture, then all those bills that had a hearing could be included in that larger bill.
Okay, and just really quickly, quick follow-up. Anytime you talk about rushing things through at the Capitol, people's ears might perk up and go, whoa, does that seem like a good idea?
I'm all for thoughtful, long discussions and dotting our I's and crossing our T's. This is only the first deadline. We have till May 18th. So consider this a mini sprint for a couple days.
All right, sounds good. One of the things that has hit and again, there's just so much. If you're interested in politics at all, even the slightest, just go on the combined calendar every day and just read through and click through all of the different committees and the hearings and the bills. HCMC has been, we know, in financial trouble for a while. That's been in the headlines. We've known that. But yesterday we saw them go to the legislature. What's going on there?
This is an effort by the county, Hennepin County, the largest county in the state, and HCMC, the largest public hospital in the state, to stabilize their finances. Their proposal from the county is that they expand or multiply the tax on sales tax in Hennepin County that currently goes to the Twins ballpark. So the original purpose was to fund the Twins ballpark. That is mostly paid off. The county would like to triple that tax and have the money go to HCMC or healthcare. It's not very popular with Senate Tax Chair Ann Rest. She keeps saying, does anybody have any other ideas? One of the real issues here is that the county, which oversees HCMC, took over the hospital a few years ago. Labor costs have risen, health costs have risen. We've seen major disruption in our healthcare across multiple parts of healthcare right now. And so you start to see a chance for this to be one of those big issues that gets decided at the end, because if HCMC were to fail or squeeze out a certain number of people, you have to look at some of the specializations they have. So for instance, burn care. Most burn victims from across Minnesota come to HCMC. They have the only hyperbolic chamber if somebody needs a hyperbolic chamber. So it is a statewide attracting hospital, but the day-to-day costs of uncovered care have really weighed it down in recent years. So I think there's some financial reform in addition to some more financial support that they're really going to need from the legislature this year.
Okay, yeah, one of the biggies. How about the budget? Bring us up to speed on where we are. I know the governor just presented his supplemental a few days ago. What's the latest?
Well, there's not much new in the 2 days since he announced his budget. But what I will say is it was a very ambitious budget for a supplemental. But that makes sense because Governor Walz is trying to paint his legacy. DHS reform and paying for DHS reform was a big part of it. There was a lowering of the sales tax, but an expansion of the sales tax, which he proposed last year as part of his budget, and it didn't go anywhere. We still have the same legislative dynamics, a tie in the House and only one seat majority in the Senate. One of the big differences is that all the Senate seats are on the ballot this year. And so you're starting to see Democrats push back against the governor on key issues, including some of the cuts in his budget. As we kind of dig in, what you're going to see here is probably, I would say, by mid-April, you'll see legislative leaders. So Leader Stevenson in the House, Speaker Demuth in the House, Leader Murphy in the Senate, and perhaps Leader Johnson come to a budget number that they have to hit. And then you have to take the tax bill, the spending bill, any other accounting issues that you have, and put that forth as your supplemental budget. But 2 years ago, that was during the trifecta. The budget went from $200 million to $400 million in 4 days that they all agreed to. We don't have those kinds of dollars here. We do have a major budget reserve that's over the legal need. And so it'd be interesting to see if they tap into the budget reserve to pay for some of the governor's final priorities, because it is his legacy, and I know he's conscious of that.
I wanted to ask you a quick follow-up on this because it just occurred to me as we're talking about this. I think I hear from a lot of people as they're going through the budget. What about fraud, the fraud that's been found? How does that play in as they're looking at budgeting ahead a couple of years, or there are effects right now? People may want to understand how that works.
I think there's 2 or 3 ways to think about it. Right now, that plays into, are there funds in the current budget that are not going to be spent because you've frozen payments, you've stopped vendors, things like that? Past fraud is going to be really hard. Is there a clawback? Is there money there? You think about the autism program that grew tenfold over time and then was found to have major fraud. Well, don't you just cut that back to a reasonable number of spending? And then the third dynamic that the governor talks about a lot is the federal role in fraud and spending. We know the federal government has frozen some payments. They're going to have some, kind of parameters and rules. It's almost like, your teenager is grounded for a while. They're not going to get their allowance. And that's the way Minnesota is. But does Minnesota continue those services in the current biennium? And then when you look at future budgets, which will be the responsibility of the next governor, is there more accounting that you need to spend less in certain areas because there was significant fraud? And when we say that, we hear a lot of numbers thrown around. But just in DHS, it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's in the context of a $67 billion budget. So it's real money. but it's how do you make it. It doesn't mean the budget is necessarily going to shrink by billions of dollars.
Okay, finally, I'm curious about relationships, dynamics between lawmakers. How are things going? They've been through a lot since the last session, just emotionally, and with just the horrible things that happened with the Hortman family, the Hoffman family. There was a seemingly a push to, hey, we gotta get together on this and make things work. Have we seen that play out? Any effects of that?
It's a good question. I have seen it play out. Sweeney's in St. Paul is offering free lunch for bipartisan legislators. So if you bring a Democrat and a Republican, they'll buy you lunch. I've seen a couple legislators take advantage of that. I would say this. It's like life, Amy. In my observations this year and throughout the last few years, there's certain people who just aren't very social. They don't build relationships, or they bring their activism to the Capitol. They're not doing as well on the relationship and the bipartisanship as those who are themselves. They can agree to disagree. They're not yelling and screaming. They're not making a lot of noise. And they put their arm around each other, and they even joke. I mean, if you really are, watching the Fox 9 coverage, which is really good at peeking into these committees, occasionally you'll get a Democrat or Republican crack a joke. That shows that even if they disagree, they get along and they know they have a job to do.
Right. And, there's the allegiance of the party, which sometimes on both sides can pull people, it's like a magnet and pulls them back here. And so it's interesting to see. And funny you should mention Sweeney's. Yeah, we talked to Will Rolfe, and we have an interview with him that we recorded a couple days ago before the second set of lawmakers came in. So we'll show that in just a little bit. Blois, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you coming in and giving us kind of the 30,000-foot view here on some really important topics that are hanging around the Capitol.
No problem. I think maybe we should just go live from Sweeney's one of these days. Amy, I'll join you for the whole show. We'll have legislators over. Might even tip one after.
It's funny you say that, because we did plant that idea with Will and said if it ever happens during our show, maybe we listen in. And so far, though, I have to say I think both sets, I can't speak for Julia Coleman, but I think both sets already knew each other, kind of already were.
Yes.
So it's not like what I want to see is polar, opposite, firm, stand your ground kind of conversations being, whittled away at. But it's just me. It's good TV.
We'll take that homework, Amy. We'll try to figure that out.
All right, Blois. Thanks. Take care. We'll see you.
See ya.
See you next week. All right.